Everybody wants to know whether or not the bottom is in, as in, are we back in a bull run? We're going to dive into the price of Bitcoin, show you my targets, show you where the liquidity is, and let you know whether I believe if we are at the bottom or not. Of course, we're going to dive in a little bit deeper into tokenized stocks that have landed on base. And of course, we're so accustomed to seeing this type of activity already on Robinhood Chain. And of course, we're going to get deeper into ARK, which is the foreign exchange USDC stablecoin chain that's likely to bring in a lot of energy. And then of course, we're going to finish off with some of this Bitcoin ordinals, inscriptions, different types of tokens on that network, because we want to see if the activity is suggesting that the on-chain world in Bitcoin has returned. So of course, check out CoinWins.app, sign up. Most of it's free. Some of it is actually a little bit of a premium experience, but we do offer a lot of these tools, a lot of the systems, a lot of the updates for free. So simply sign up, and why not dive into the charts and let's take a look. Okay. So on a smaller time frame, more of a daily time frame or intraday time frame, I'm looking at Bitcoin in a way, and what I'm seeing is actually potential for us to move up, even possibly closer to the $90,000 range. But the reality is we are actually not looking perfectly bullish just yet. What I see right now is liquidity above price in the 83 to 85 zone, but also liquidity below price. Now, my initial idea from before, weeks back in previous videos, was that this was not the bottom. It looks like it could have been the bottom in July. A lot of people have been calling for the bottom in July for Bitcoin, and this pump was really big. Don't get me wrong, this pump was huge, but this could in fact be another lower high. So we've got this high right here, and then possibly right now we've got another lower high, which would lead us down potentially into liquidity below price. Now, I'm not necessarily expecting this to happen, but I'm also totally open. Now, if you're part of the community, and of course you can find a link to that in the description. Of course, you can find links to that throughout the different websites that we've built, the different apps that I've created for you guys. You'll notice that I've said very clearly that I believe that we're going lower. And I said this way before the pump. So I'm not saying that it's not possible, but look, the reality is simple. Liquidity is above price and liquidity is below price. We could see a bottom in September, which would be interesting and different from previous cycles. But also, I do see a range here that I've got outlined in green. This is my long entry idea. I'm anticipating price will come down into this 50,000, maybe 40,000 zone. I'm actually even seeing possibly the price of Bitcoin taking its time to get into the month, perhaps of January, into 2027 as a bottom. So that would take us possibly into January or even February of 2027. But for now, we play it as we see it. When we saw this drop here, as a matter of fact, when we saw that drop earlier and we saw the pump, and then we said, okay, the next major drop, and we had 1 and 2. That major drop right here in the month of June and July, I said this was a great time to enter the market, but enter with maybe 10 to 20% of your portfolio, your allocation, what you have set aside. So if you have $10,000, maybe put in 1,000, maybe 1,500, or possibly 2,000, and treat it like that. But the reason why this would be a bullish time to get into other assets is because look at this. When you start to see Bitcoin moving in a range, this is a great opportunity, especially with a bit of an upwards trend. This is a great opportunity for altcoins to start to flourish, start to trade upwards and to gain some type of momentum and even find themselves a bottom. So we have Ethereum, which typically bottoms before Bitcoin in a bull run. If you go back in history, you'll see that Ethereum actually bottoms several months before Bitcoin does. And so this would have been my long right here. You guys see that right there. That's the long entry right there. The retest right there was a higher low, which is beautiful because now this is a huge, incredible trade. 7-to-1 risk to reward, or reward to risk, maybe 6-to-1. Beautiful trade right here. But you can see Ethereum is making a higher high, right? It has made a higher high. So Ethereum looks really bullish. But at the same time, if I go out to the daily or even the weekly time frames, it's still a downtrend. We're still in a downtrend. We have to make a bullish move up here and break this area around 2,800, 2,900 to around 3,000 and actually retest it. So break through and retest to make it more of a bullish trend, essentially. For now, we are still in a bear trend. That is the simple reality. But in the shorter term, for the next couple of weeks or several months, we could see Bitcoin move up. And then we could actually see it come down again before moving up again. So we'll be very patient to play the game of Bitcoin. A lot of the other altcoins, I'm not going to, dare I say, waste my time even looking at them. We need to see Bitcoin in a bullish trend. But we don't need Bitcoin to be super bullish for us to actually explore other chains. So, for example, Base, we have stocks on Base, tokenized stocks. Yes, we've been seeing this a lot on Robinhood Chain, but seeing this on Base is really bullish because Base, to be honest, guys, a lot of us are not really into Base, and Base hasn't necessarily been performing extremely well in terms of its whole entire ecosystem. When you look at how Robinhood Chain has been exploding, you've got guys on the Bitcoin side coming straight over to Robinhood Chain and soaking up liquidity. Now, this could just be a liquidity grab. We'll have to find out, right? But the reality is, you follow the money, you follow the flow of liquidity. And when you see the Bitcoin ordinals and the inscriptions, guys, you know, going somewhere, you probably know that they know something that you may not. And we'll dive into some of that later, but this is absolutely bullish for Base, bullish for Ethereum. A lot of people are against Ethereum. They say that this whole L2 complex is bad for Ethereum. In my view, it is absolutely great for Ethereum. It allows virtually any company to launch their own chain, but of course it brings value back to ETH. Now, people want ETH to make hundreds of thousands of dollars for all of the different L2s every day or every month. Look, the reality is even a few $1,000s here, a few $1,000s there. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but when we're looking at the greatest wealth transfer of all, we likely want those earnings from Ethereum to be a little bit lower, because if you think about how many more chains will launch and how many more people will be active on ETH, one of these chains can't be bringing in 30, 40, 50, $200,000, $1 million every day or two or every week. That's in a sense, that's kind of way too much at the current price of Ethereum. So it's very provocative and inspiring to have a chain that is going to be your security layer, and you can essentially market yourselves as you want, and you can send your customers over to Ethereum and pay a very small fee to actually get your chains published. And I think it's actually really good, and we'll move on. So let's look at StonkBrokers. The reason I'm showing StonkBrokers is one of the coolest platforms I've seen around. Tokenized stocks, you get these assets, these NFT assets that actually hold wallets, that hold tokenized assets. I think it's such a unique experience right now in the blockchain space. It's very wise to say, simply speaking, when you have a new chain and a new blockchain, a new ecosystem, a new bull run, you want to be coming with brand new tech. And that is exactly what I'm seeing with this StonkBrokers. So they've got this, this Anvil NFT, they've got this launcher so you can launch tokens. That would be right over here. I'm not going to dive in, but I just want to show you guys what I've been into. So even though Bitcoin has been a little bit uncertain, yeah, we had a great pump and it's kind of cooling off, but maybe not. We do absolutely know that there are new and exciting forms of technology launching on different chains. Let's continue on from the Robinhood chain over to Inc, which is by Kraken. Now, we mentioned this in previous videos that Kraken is one of those exchanges that has been totally certified by the US government. So that Kraken's going to explode. And that means we're looking at Kraken NFTs, of course. Of course, we're also looking, Inc NFTs, but of course, we're also looking at Robinhood NFTs. So these are the two major chains right now. Of course, they're Ethereum, right? Layer 2s, huge opportunities, huge collections over on Robinhood Chain. And like I said, we've got Bitcoin guys over here. We've got more Bitcoin guys over here. And we've got other Bitcoin guys on this chain. So Bitcoin liquidity is flowing into this chain. Again, is it a liquidity grab? Maybe. Is it a scam? Definitely not. Is there something legitimate? Absolutely. If you guys were in my community, would you know? Yes, indeed. So I'm looking at different assets on Inc, which is Kraken's chain. Of course, I'm looking at different assets on Robinhood, okay, which is Robinhood Chain. Of course, Robinhood's chain, which is an Ethereum layer 2. Check the last video for that. And of course, I'm still watching Base. Can't deny that, especially with stocks. So now I'm looking for StonkBrokers types of plays, like this type of play, but this time on Ethereum, on Base. Okay, let's continue on. Bankr bot has been teaming up since this tokenized stock system has been launched with on Base. Bankr, which is an incredible project, is now of course live with essentially the ability to automate the buys and sells of your assets. Now look at this example. It's really, really cool, right? That's the builder number 1, let's say, on Base, right? Now you can see that you can speak directly to Bankr and say, Bankr, buy such and such amount of this stock, and then put it in, like a liquidity pool. And, Bankr bot is going to talk to you. So this is very public. It's not for everybody, but it's super cool that you can talk directly to this bot and get it to perform actions for you. This is not a new thing, mind you, but it's now able to be done with stocks. So I anticipate more real world assets on Base, just like you have real world assets on Robinhood Chain and others, right? So check out these 3 chains. Let's move on a bit and go on to ARK. Now this one we're not going to spend too much time on, just because I want to make it known again, September 16th is when this chain launches. So I'll definitely be looking for plays on this side. Now this is more of a foreign exchange type of experience. So USDC and other US dollar tokens that are tokenized dollars or tokenized currencies from different nations will be traded much more on this chain. Now, I did a deep dive on ARK, and I discussed the idea that right now in the world, foreign exchange is the largest asset class when it comes to daily volume. So I would be looking at this chain, ARK, to see what's really going on. Of course, Aerodrome, Stable Effects, and Stablecoin Effects. Of course, there's partnerships with Uniswap and so many more. So definitely, guys, keep an eye on this. And I did mention that we're building something for ARK. Like literally right now, I'm building something for ARK. And will it launch on day 1? That's not really the goal. I do want to see how the energy flows on ARK and see what's missing. But I have an idea of what is necessary, hence the reason we're building. So let's continue on, looking at the mempool very quickly. Mempool, sitting at 2 sats per VByte, 5 sats. We can go back many, many days and you'll notice it's still very low. So the on-chain world on Bitcoin, I mean, even this block was not, look at this block. I mean, come on, there's not really much going on. Now, this is only a few days ago, maybe some 12 hours, but the point is you can clearly see that right now there's not necessarily a lot of volume happening directly on chain. Now, for those who don't know, I mean, this is not through a centralized exchange. This is definitely people hitting the blocks directly in the mempool, on the time chain, and minting runes or BRC20s or alkanes or all these different types of tokens. But you can see there's not a lot of activity right now. Some of the blocks are really kind of empty, 665 transactions. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't hundreds of millions of dollars transacted at this time on a centralized exchange. Again, this is why I'm looking on chain, because the whole world of runes and BRC20s and all the different token standards exists directly on chain for the most part. Only a small fraction of that volume is actually traded on centralized exchanges, which does not reflect directly on chain. Okay. And if we look at the inscriptions, we can see 228 inscriptions. Yeah, well, that was just an hour ago, but there's not a lot of inscriptions. 400 inscriptions. That's great. But when we're in a bull market and people are actually inscribing runes and ordinals and this and that, you're going to see hundreds and thousands of inscriptions in blocks all the time. But there just aren't many. 20 inscriptions, 150, 6 inscriptions, 14 inscriptions. This doesn't mean that the blockchain, Bitcoin specifically, is not active. It just means that, hey, like maybe there's something going on elsewhere. Again, that's why so many of these collections have gone, well, so many of these Bitcoin, collections and creators have moved on to Robinhood Chain. They're following the liquidity. They know how to make money. They know how to rinse and repeat. So follow the liquidity, join the community so that you know exactly what's happening as we continue throughout this possible bear market end or bull market beginning. And you'll notice that if you look at the most recent update we've got to CoinWins, I've got a new Pulse section, which gives you a daily digital asset brief, tons of absolutely useful information, good to deal with when it comes to liquidity, understanding how to read on-chain information, understanding more of this buy the rumor, sell the news type of energy. And of course, like I said, liquidity levels, that's very cool, very important. And we're looking at market maker activity so that we are right in line trading with the market maker. As you see, we've got lots of liquidity zones mapped out. That is 100% for us to be in line with the market maker. So I'm anticipating some of these pink zones get tagged at some point in time. Now, if we break this area down here under the 53, 54 range, then that I'm saying that price is likely to go even lower, but I'm fine. I'm already in the market. We already said this a little while ago. As soon as it hit here, I said 10 to 20%, maybe even down here, I said 10 to 20% in the market to speculate, but I'm not necessarily just speculating straight on Bitcoin. We are diving into other chains, looking for higher opportunities, more volatility, and essentially cutting edge technology with real world assets and so on. So definitely check out the new update for CoinWins and get your weekly analysis, weekly CoinWins, CoinWins Weekly here, like a newsletter. Sign up because these will be going out to people on a weekly basis. For now, you can of course view it on the website, but I definitely plan to update so that we can have these updates sent directly to your inbox, to your email. So if you're, not sure about the market, you're on vacation, or you just want to keep up to date on a daily basis, well, this is absolutely the place to come. Check out the daily moves, see what's happening right here on the daily market pulse, which updates all the time. Every market session, whether it's UK, US, Asia sessions, is always updating right here on the chart. So you can click right here and you can see that information right here. It's always pumping every time, and it changes on the fly. So dive into that, and I definitely hope to see you guys in the next one. All right, all the best. Okay, let's win together. Take it easy.